Hello everyone, so I just wanted to give a quick video overview of the Age of Enlightenment, looking at describing some of the major figures in the Enlightenment and the impact that the movement had on the world. So the first thing that I want to start off with is an Enlightenment thinker from Ethiopia who actually came up with the phrase that all men are equal in the presence of God. So much earlier than that of John Locke, who wrote that all men are created equal. I think it's really important to include Zara Yacob at the beginning of our conversation. He was working on this in the early to mid 1600s, and his quote here, "All men are created equal in the presence of God, and all are intelligent since they are his creatures. He did not assign one people for life, another for death, one for mercy, another for judgment. Our reason teaches us that this sort of discrimination cannot exist." So mentioning the concept of reason as well. These are the major ideas in the Age of Enlightenment that I think it's important that we start off by including Zara Yacob in the story here. We have our timeline overview of some of the events that we have looked at in the past, just to kind of put the Age of Enlightenment on our collective timeline here, talking about the Renaissance, feudalism, the Scientific Revolution, the Protestant Reformation, and the Age of Absolutism here. These are the types of things that are happening around the time of the Age of Enlightenment. So a simple way to define the Age of Enlightenment is a period of time from the mid-1600s to the late 1700s, usually defined as being in Western Europe, when philosophers and writers applied the scientific idea of reason to answer political questions. So it's also known as the Age of Reason. So this is when Enlightenment thinkers, philosophers, or philosophers, just as scientists challenge the claims of the Catholic Church, Enlightenment thinkers challenge the claims of absolute monarchs. And this brought about a lot of change in the world. So we have our vocab list here with some of the key terms that we see when we're discussing the Age of Enlightenment. Right, something that you are allowed to do because you are a person. Reason, the power of the mind to think, understand, and make sense of the world. And then we see some of the other pieces that are specific to the ideas of some of the philosophers that we'll take a look at. When we're looking at causes of the Enlightenment, we have a couple of different moments. So we have the Protestant Reformation and the Scientific Revolution. So when Martin Luther nails that 95 Thesis onto the church doors, it challenges the power that the Catholic Church had. We talked about how that led to the Scientific Revolution, where we have scientists and thinkers who are challenging how the world works and challenging other pieces that the church has put into place. We also talk about Johannes Gutenberg inventing the printing press and how that allowed for mass production of books and literature to be published and shared. This was very important in spreading Martin Luther's ideas during the Protestant Reformation, the translated Bible during the Protestant Reformation, and during the Enlightenment, book production increased even more so, and literacy rates rose because people wanted to be able to read these ideas and concepts. And then we have the idea of urbanization, salons and coffee houses, where people are just gathering to talk about ideas. Philosophers are gathering in these places, but also upper class intellectuals are exchanging ideas in salons, someone's home, and we just see this kind of this idea of education and experiencing and sharing education and knowledge growing in society. So that leads to the Enlightenment being well received by people who are already looking to share ideas and knowledge. So we highlight a couple of different figures in the Enlightenment. We look at John Locke. England, 1632 to 1704, the two treatises of government, which she published in 1690. Most well-known ideas are that government should protect the people's natural rights, life, liberty, and property, and that government should be based on the consent of the governed. This means that the people, the governed, should give their permission, consent, to the government, usually through some form of voting. Then we take a look at Baron de Montesquieu. He is located in France, 1689 to 1755. The Spirit of Laws is his most famous work, published in 1748. He is most well known for the ideas of the separation of powers, that there should be three branches of government, ones that make the laws, enforce the laws, and interprets the laws. So these are the judicial, the executive, and the legislative branches. As you're probably already thinking, these are ideas that the United States very clearly took from the Enlightenment when they were creating their own new government after separating from Great Britain. And then we have Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Rousseau is Switzerland, France, 1712-1778. His most famous work is The Social Contract, published in 1762. And his social contract theory is his most famous idea. This is the idea that the members of society enter into an agreement in which they promise to follow the general will of the members of society as expressed by the laws made by the government. In exchange, we receive the liberty to do what we want as long as we do not break those laws. So this is the idea that the people and the government have a contract, not necessarily that both parties are signing, but like an unofficial social contract that exists that applies to the general will of the people. And then just two other thinkers that we like to highlight, Voltaire and Diderot. Diderot was the most famous for the encyclopedia. 28-volume encyclopedia included useful knowledge on craft, trade skills, new discoveries from the scientific revolution, philosophy from Enlightenment thinkers. All of this information was now available for people to read, absorb, and share. And this is really important because the encyclopedias exist in a way that functions similar to the internet today. The internet obviously does not exist at this time that we're talking about in Enlightenment. So the idea that we can have a place where you can go and read about a variety of different topics in one location is really groundbreaking. And then we have Voltaire, who we take a quick look at. His most famous work is Candide, and is most well known for the idea of freedom of expression. So the famous quote that goes around with that is that I do not agree with what you have to say, but I'll defend to the death your right to say it. So these Enlightenment thinkers obviously have a huge impact on world history because their ideas spread throughout the world, and we see how they impacted the actions of individuals, groups, governments, societies. We'll talk about these Enlightenment thinkers again when we talk about the French Revolution in our next unit. So I hope this little overview video helps as you review the Enlightenment.